Okay, so I have a logic puzzle for you to kick things off. You ready?
I am always ready for a puzzle. Let's hear it.
All right. Alice has 4 brothers and 1 sister. How many sisters does Alice's brother have?
Okay, let me think. Alice has 4 brothers, 1 sister. So if I'm one of the brothers, I
Yeah.
have that 1 sister
Right.
plus Alice herself. So 2, the brother has 2 sisters.
Correct. But you hesitated for a second there.
I did, yeah. I had to sort of mentally put myself in the room with Alice and count the heads.
Exactly. It requires a tiny bit of mental modeling. Now, here's where it gets really weird. If you ask some of the most advanced, multi-million-dollar AI models this exact question, they frequently get it wrong.
Let me guess. They say 1.
They say 1, they count the other sister, but they completely forget that Alice is also a sister.
That is such a specific type of failure, and it's fascinating because it seems so simple to us.
It is absolutely mind-blowing. I mean, we are talking about systems that can pass the bar exam, they can write code for entire websites.
Compose sonnets.
Right. Compose sonnets in the style of Shakespeare. But they trip over a family tree riddle that a grade schooler would figure out pretty quickly.
And that trip up, that specific failure, is actually the perfect crack in the facade. It reveals exactly what we're going to talk about today, because that error, it happens because the AI doesn't actually know who Alice is.
Or what a sister is.
Or even what counting really means.
And that is our mission for this deep dive. We're peeling back the layers of this technology to understand the illusion of knowledge. We've got a whole stack of research here, from the famous stochastic parrots paper to studies on something called the reversal curse.
Yeah, we're going to look at why an AI can predict the next word in a sentence perfectly, but still fail to, understand the concept behind the word. We really need to distinguish between having information and actually possessing knowledge.
So let's unpack this, because when I chat with a bot, it sure feels like there's a mind on the other end. If these models aren't thinking in the way we do, what exactly are they doing?
It does feel like thinking, and that's entirely by design. But to understand what's really happening, we have to look at the core mechanism. At their absolute, most fundamental level, LLMs are prediction machines.
The glorified autocomplete?
Precisely. I mean, think about when you're texting on your phone. You type, "I'm going to the," and your phone suggests store, gym, or park.
Right. It's just guessing based on what I usually say.
Right.
But surely something like ChatGPT is doing more than that. My phone is dumb.
Yeah.
These models are writing essays.
Well, it's the same mechanic, just on a scale that is, it's almost hard to comprehend. Imagine that autocomplete on steroids. Instead of just looking at your last 3 text messages, imagine it has read the entire internet.
The entire internet.
Every book, every article, every Reddit thread.
Okay, so it has a much bigger dictionary.
It has a much better map of probability. It's always asking, given the last 2,000 words I just generated, what is the most statistically probable token to appear next?
And token is just fancy talk for a word, or even part of a word, right?
Basically, yes. And this leads us to a term that caused quite a stir in the AI ethics community a while back, the stochastic parrot.
I love that term. It sounds like an indie rock band. But break down stochastic for me. It sounds complicated.
It just means random or determined by random probability. A parrot can mimic the sounds of human speech. It can say, "Polly wants a cracker," perfectly.
Sure.
But the parrot doesn't understand the concept of a cracker, or the feeling of wanting, or even who Polly is. It's just mimicking the form.
So the argument is that AI is just a really, really expensive parrot.
In essence, yes. An AI is stochastic because it's mimicking that form based on probability distributions, not intent.
Not intent.
Right. It doesn't want to tell you the answer. It just calculates that the answer is the most likely sequence of letters to follow your question.
I saw a great analogy in one of our sources from a Reddit discussion on this. One user compared calling an AI a prediction machine to calling a master painter a brushstroke predictor.
That's a lovely image.
The argument was that, sure, technically the painter is just deciding where to put the next stroke of paint, but calling them a predictor misses the art. But the counter-argument, and I think this is where we land, is that the painter has an intent.
Right. The painter has a vision of a sunset they saw. They have a memory of how the light hit the water, the AI. It's just predicting which brushstroke is statistically most likely to sit next to the previous one based on all the other paintings it has scanned.
So the AI has no communicative intent, no belief system.
It has a probability map. That's it. It's generating text that looks like human reasoning because human reasoning is what it was trained on. It's an impersonator.
Okay, but let me push back on this a little bit. If it's just predicting words, why do we confuse it with being smart? I mean, if I memorize the answers to a test and get 100%, didn't I demonstrate knowledge?
Ah, that brings us to the hierarchy of data versus information versus knowledge. And to answer your question, no, memorizing the answers isn't knowledge, it's just data retention.
Harsh, but walk me through the hierarchy.
Right. So at the very bottom, you have data. That's just raw facts or figures. Numbers like 23, 30, 28. On their own, they mean nothing.
Okay. And then above that is information.
Right. Information is data with context. The temperature in July was 23, 30, and 28 degrees. Now we have a pattern. We know who, what, where, and when. AI excels here. It is the king of information processing.
But then there's the top level, knowledge.
And knowledge is the application of information through experience, judgment, and insight. It's knowing why the temperature rose, or knowing that 30 degrees means you need to turn on the AC or maybe wear shorts.
There was this construction metaphor in the research that really stood out. It said data and information are like a pile of bricks, wood, and wires at a job site. You can have all the best materials in the world. That's the information.
Right.
But knowledge is the architecture. It's the design that turns that pile into a house.
That's a strong visual. But I'd even take it a step further. An LLM has the biggest pile of bricks in history. It has all the bricks. But it doesn't have the lived experience to be the architect. It doesn't live in the house.
So if I ask it about building a house, it gives me a blueprint because it's seen a million blueprints, not because it knows what a house is for.
Correct. It connects to the why gap. An AI can tell you that water boils at 100 degrees Celsius. That's information. It can even describe the physics of it, but it doesn't know what boiling feels like. It doesn't know the urgency of a pot boiling over on the stove. It lacks embodiment.
Embodiment. That's a key word here. We learn hot because we touch a stove and it hurts. The AI learns hot because the word appears statistically close to words like stove or fire.
Which brings us to the mechanics of how the AI sees those words. Because if it doesn't have a physical body to feel heat, how does it organize these concepts? It uses something called vectors.
Okay, let's unpack vectors, because the research gets pretty dense here with numbers and coordinates. How do we explain this without needing a whiteboard?
Well, imagine a massive map. Not a flat map, like on your wall, but like a 3D galaxy of words. Every single word in the dictionary is a specific star in this galaxy.
So apple isn't a round red fruit to the AI, it's just a coordinate.
Exactly. It's a position in space. And the magic is in where those coordinates sit relative to each other. So in this galaxy, the star for king is mathematically very close to the star for queen.
And apple is clustered near pear and pie.
Exactly. So instead of knowing that an apple is sweet and crunchy, it just knows that the word apple hangs out in the same neighborhood as the word pie. It's defining words by their company.
So it's all relationships.
It is. A famous example in computer science of that you can actually do math with these words. If you take the vector for king, subtract the vector for man, and add the vector for woman, you land almost perfectly on the vector for queen.
That is wild. It's doing algebra with language.
It is. But notice what's missing. It knows king and queen are related in the same way man and woman are, but it doesn't know what a monarchy is.
Or a gender.
Or a gender. It just knows the geometry of the words.
And this is that distinction between syntax and semantics, right?
Yes. Syntax is the rules, the structure, the form. The cat sat on the mat. The AI knows cat is a noun and usually performs the action of sitting. Semantics is the actual meaning, the furry animal, the rough texture of the mat.
This reminds me of the Chinese room argument.
Oh, the classic thought experiment by the philosopher John Searle.
Right, so imagine you are in a room alone. You don't speak Chinese, but you have this massive rule book that says if someone slips a piece of paper with this squiggly symbol under the door, you find the matching symbol in the book and slip that one back out.
So from the outside, the person thinks, wow, the person in that room speaks fluent Chinese.
But inside, I'm just looking at shapes. I have absolutely no idea if I just agreed to a peace treaty or ordered a pizza.
That is essentially what an LLM is doing. It is the world's fastest, most complex symbol juggler. It just follows the rules of the vector map.
Okay, so it's a symbol juggler. But here's my question. If it's juggling the whole internet, shouldn't it eventually understand who the symbols represent? If it has perfect syntax, doesn't semantics just, I don't know, emerge?
You'd think so. Many researchers hope so. But this is where the mask really slips, and it slips in a way that is almost comical. It's called the reversal curse.
Sounds like a horror movie title.
It's a bit of a horror movie for AI developers, because it proves the AI isn't thinking in concepts. It's thinking in one-way streets.
Okay, give us the example from the study.
So if you train an AI on the sentence, Olaf Scholz is the 9th Chancellor of Germany, it learns that sequence perfectly. If you ask, who is Olaf Scholz? It says, the 9th Chancellor of Germany.
Correct. A leads to B.
But, and here's the kicker, if you ask, who is the 9th Chancellor of Germany,
Yeah.
the model often fails. It doesn't know.
Wait, really? That seems incredibly stupid for a so-called smart machine.
It does to us, because to a human, logic is bidirectional. If A equals B, then obviously B equals A. If Olaf is the Chancellor is Olaf. It's the same fact.
But to the AI.
To the AI, it's just a sequence. It has memorized Olaf leads to Chancellor. It has not memorized the path Chancellor leads to Olaf.
There was a celebrity example too, right? With Tom Cruise.
Yes. The model knew that Tom Cruise's mother is Mary Lee Pfeiffer. It had seen that sequence of words thousands of times, but when asked, who is Mary Lee Pfeiffer's son, it hallucinated or just gave up.
Which implies that the AI doesn't have a mental model of a family tree where Tom and Mary are connected by lines.
Exactly. It doesn't have a knowledge graph in its head. It has a probability chain that only goes one way. It proves that the AI isn't navigating a web of knowledge. It's just traversing a one-way street of statistical likelihood.
So, if the AI is just guessing the next word and it can't even reverse a simple fact, why does it seem so smart? Why are we also convinced it's reasoning?
It's the clever Hans effect.
The horse. I remember this story.
Back in the early 1900s, there was a horse named Hans who could apparently do math. You'd say, Hans, what is 2 plus 3? And he'd tap his hoof 5 times. Everyone was amazed. Scientists studied him.
But he wasn't actually doing math.
No, he was just reading the subtle body language of his trainer. When he reached 5 taps, the trainer would tense up or relax slightly, these micro-expressions, and Hans knew to stop to get a treat. He was reacting to cues, not understanding concepts.
And AI is doing the same thing with our prompts.
In a way, yes. It's reading the cues in massive amounts of text. It knows that a question, starting with why, usually requires a response structure that looks like an explanation. It's doing what researchers call shortcut learning.
Okay.
It finds correlations in the data that look like the right answer without actually doing the cognitive work to get there.
However, I do want to play devil's advocate for a second. We can't just dismiss it all as a trick. We have a source here, the study on fMRI matching, that suggests maybe there is something more going on inside the machine.
Yes, this is important for a balanced view. We shouldn't be too cynical.
So researchers scanned human brains while they looked at images or concepts, and then they looked at the internal math of the AI processing the same concepts.
Right, specifically in the visual cortex. And what they found was when the AI processes the word dog, its internal mathematical representation, those vectors we talked about, actually aligns surprisingly well with the brain activity of a human thinking about a dog.
So when the AI thinks of dog, its math looks a bit like a human brain thinking of dog. Doesn't that mean it understands?
It means it has a very, very good map. But, and this is the big but, it's a map of language, not a map of the world. It's what you'd call meaning without reference.
Meaning without reference. Break that down for me.
Okay, imagine you found a map of a city you've never visited. You can see that the library is next to the bank. You memorize every street name. You could even give someone directions.
Go down Main Street, turn left at the bank. I can do that without ever being there.
Exactly, but you don't know what the library smells like. You don't know the sound of the traffic on Main Street. You have the structure, but not the substance. The AI has a perfect map of language about dogs. It knows dog is near bark and fur, but it has never walked the territory of reality.
That brings us right back to that construction metaphor. It has the blueprint, but it's never laid a brick.
Exactly, and that lack of laying the brick, that lack of embodiment, is why it fails the logic puzzles. It counts words, not people. It counts Alice as a word in the sentence, but it doesn't model Alice as a person standing in a room with her brothers.
So let's bring this home for the listener.
Yeah.
We've established that AI is a prediction engine, not a knowledge engine. It's a master of syntax, but it's blind to semantics.
And it suffers from the reversal curse because it learns sequences, not bidirectional truths.
So what does this mean for us? For the person using AI to write a report or learn a new topic?
It means we need a fundamental shift in how we view the output. We have to stop treating AI text as truth and start treating it as probability.
It's not an encyclopedia, it's a dice roll.
A very, very sophisticated dice roll, but yes. When an AI hallucinates, it's not lying to you. It has no concept of truth or lies. It's just that the probability dice came up with a word that fits the sentence structure, but not the fact structure.
It's prioritizing sounding good over being right.
It has to. It's an actor playing a scientist. The actor doesn't know physics. They know how a physicist sounds. They know the jargon, the tone, the cadence.
That is a distinction every user needs to tape to their monitor.
Yeah.
Optimized for plausibility, not accuracy.
And that gets to the danger. If you use AI to debug code or write a medical summary, you aren't asking an expert. You're asking an improv comic to role-play an expert. They might get it right, but they're just as likely to make up a convincing lie to keep the scene going.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it changes how we see our own intelligence. We take for granted how much of our knowledge is grounded in physical reality. We know gravity because things fall. We know love because we feel it. We aren't just predicting the next word, we're reporting on our experience of being alive.
The AI is just reporting on the text it read about being alive. It is a secondary source.
This has been a fascinating look under the hood. It really takes the magic out of it, but in a way, that makes it more interesting. It's a mathematical marvel, just not a conscious mind.
It's a mirror, a very convincing high-tech mirror.
Before we sign off, I want to leave everyone with a thought to mull over. We talked about how AI can write poetry.
Right.
If an AI writes a heartbreakingly beautiful poem about the colors of a sunset, but it has never seen a sunset, never felt the cooling air of twilight, and doesn't even have eyes, where does that beauty come from?
That is the question. Is the beauty in the machine? Or is it just reflecting the beauty that humans put into the training data? Are we moved by the AI, or are we just moved by the echoes of other humans, reflected back at us through a silicon chip?
Are we just talking to a very convincing mirror? Something to think about next time you're chatting with your computer. Thanks for diving in with us.
A pleasure as always.
See you next time on The Deep Dive.